Hi, I'm Gunnar Abramson from the Crown Point Country Historical Society here in Corbett, Oregon. Our area has been visited by explorers from many continents for a long time. There's a suggestion that Zheng He from China in the 15th century came off the Oregon coast here. Some say that one of his square Chinese anchors is at the bottom of Nehalem Bay, although we don't know for certain whether or not he was on the coast at all, and if so, whether he came upriver here to what is now East Multnomah County. However, there is evidence that Spanish, Portuguese, English, and certainly later American voyagers passed by what is now East County. Juan de Fuca, after whom the tectonic plate is named more recently, in the early 1600s, explored this area. Francis Drake, in the mid-1500s also, came by close to this area. In fact, he probably saw the dunes of what is now Florence, Oregon, and believed them to be snowfields. Actually, he claimed the area for England, calling it New Albion, although of course he never came up this far, nor did he come upriver as far as we know. There's also George Vancouver, who was active in this area. He was under the tutelage of James Cook, a very famous British naval officer and explorer. And Cook and later Vancouver were sent to the Pacific to, among other things, chart the transit of Venus astrologically by King George III, who had a very keen interest in the movement of the planets and astronomy at the time. When Cook came to the area, he explored the coast, and shortly after his main voyages, close to the end of the 1780s, George Vancouver, after whom Vancouver, Washington and Vancouver, BC, Canada are both named, also journeyed to this area. He dropped anchor in Nootka Sound, in what is now Vancouver Island, Canada, and sent his Lieutenant Broughton, south with a several-gun brig, two-masted brig, small warship about 80 feet long. And in 1789, Broughton went up the Columbia River all the way to what is now the town of Troutdale, and possibly slightly further. In fact, they actually felled a Douglas fir and chopped it into pieces, and one of those pieces can be seen to this day in the British Museum. The Hms Chatham, which was a Broughton ship, in going upriver, first by itself and then later using longboats, met, among other people, Chief Choteau, who himself may or may not have been descended from a Spaniard that came off the Francisco Javier, Santa Francisco Javier, which was a Philippine-bound Spanish galleon which probably went aground in 1725. His grandson was Chief Choteau. It's thought that the Wasco term Choteau, the name, was a corruption of the Spanish Soto, S-O-T-O. So in any case, if in fact Chief Choteau's parentage of European on his father's side was correct, it's ironic that he should meet the next European explorer to come downriver, William Broughton. William Broughton also, among other things, named most of the Cascade volcanoes. Hood, he named after Samuel Hood, another fellow British naval officer and one of his benefactors in the Royal Navy. Samuel Hood would, among other things, fight during the Napoleonic Wars. In fact, Samuel Hood was in charge of the British blockade of the French port of Toulon in the Mediterranean, and would meet in his adversary a young Corsican artillery officer by the name of Napoleon Bonaparte. Mount St. Helens was named after Lord St. Helens, volcano the local native population called Lewitt, the Smoker. But Lord St. Helens was also another naval officer that Broughton knew, and another benefactor, and a man who at the time was the British ambassador to the court of Spain in Madrid. He also named Rainier after one of his first superiors. When Broughton first gained his first commission as a midshipman in the Royal Navy, his commanding officer had been a Captain Rainier, of Huguenot parentage, who had fled to England following the religious wars of the 15th century in France. So all these people were named by Lieutenant Broughton after people he either knew personally or were big wheels in the Admiralty back in the UK. After Broughton came, Robert Gray in 1791 came with his ship, the Columbia Rediviva. And this is where our current name of the Columbia River comes from. The Wasco people of this area called it Nichiwana, the Great Water. But Columbia, which is a corruption of Columbus, and Columbia Rediviva is actually a flower. The river was named by Gray after his ship, the Columbia Rediviva. It became the Columbia River. Gray was a privateer. He was basically a licensed pirate during the later on during the War of 1812. During the American Revolutionary War, American War of Independence, he'd also been a privateer fighting the British. He later became a trader out of Boston, and he would trade metal, usually iron, to the local native peoples around here. They would in turn reciprocate with skins, usually beaver pelts. The beaver pelts were sold in China. Usually they were favored by the Qing dynasty court at the time, and the Chinese would also give pottery, ceramics, and sometimes precious metals to the Europeans who would be engaged in this trade. And so really the Pacific Northwest was really put on the map by people like Broughton, but also by Gray, because of this triangular trade. We expect to have quite a few exhibits and informational and otherwise on these explorers at our museum in Corbett. We welcome you to come and see them at such a time when our museum is open, and we hope to do much more coverage on this aspect of Pacific Northwest history, as well as history relating to East County, what we call Crown Point country more specifically. So thank you very much.